I'm going to go ahead and record. Trupti said she'd hop on in a bit. Um, but welcome everybody. Let me queue up the agenda. Um, Hi, Alyssa. Sorry about the confusion for last time.
Oh, no worries. Sorry, I couldn't make it, but I'm glad that this time I got it correct.
Oh, Trupti's saying she's having a hard time. Yeah,
My
well,
computer
we
seems
were
to be
moving it
melting
around,
down,
and
so
I
if
don't think
I
Trupti advertised it enough.
lose you, I'll come right back.
Okay. All right. Um, Well, Troopy's got an agenda here, and I added a couple other things, but I guess we can just go ahead and get started. Welcome to the December SUNI Land Use Committee meeting. I guess first we could just start with, does anybody have anything they'd like to bring up or talk about? Um, just any comments or stuff you've seen around the neighborhood. We usually talk about those sort of things. None. Oh, were you raising your hand, Lexi, or no? You're muted. Lexi, I think you're muted. Oh, is that the Ozzy, is that the international symbol of
It's pretty useful in the Zoom era.
yeah. Well, I had a a online Toastmasters that I was doing with Strong Towns for a while, and unfortunately it conflicts with this, so I haven't been doing it. But whenever you're applauding, they do this in the
Jazz hands.
Toastmasters thing.
Mhm.
So um
Uh, can you hear me now?
yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Sorry, I forgot I have an issue with my speaker on this computer, so I have to use my AirPods. Hi. I was just gonna ask, I know I missed last month's meeting because I thought that we were changing it and then we weren't, and so I don't know if that's still on the table to potentially consider a different day. But anyway, did we know like what happened with Remington and the city, or I'm just curious. I mean, I know I saw the article and I just was wondering if there was anything that came out of that or there's, I don't know, just
Um,
curious.
well, Melissa might know more than me about what's going on over there, but I had heard that they're not going to do it at all.
Yeah,
Was the last that I had heard, but that's so you probably I think that just came from the article as well.
yeah,
Which was a couple of things I wanted to bring up that as a land use committee, we ought to keep our eyes on what's going on in those places and might be a place for us to get a space to use in the meantime while they figure out what they're doing with that. I don't know if there's like if we start hosting these meetings, kind of hybrid, like we had talked about maybe getting together. So maybe that space is a possibility. And then next year after they close Columbian, keeping an eye on like what goes on with that property as well is probably something that we want to do. Um, and maybe in the meantime, while it's sitting there, maybe because we have a hard time finding places to host these meetings in person.
yeah.
Um,
Okay.
but no, I haven't heard anything else on that. And it looks like Troopty's able to get on. She's connecting. Um, okay. And
Think I'm
then
on.
yep, you're on. And then
Hi.
Jessica,
Awesome.
welcome to the meeting. Everybody, this is Jessica Burt. She's I met her at the if you don't know her, she's a civil engineer, but she's also in the neighborhood, and she is a member also of the block captain program that Jamie's running. So
Sorry,
and I
my
think
camera's not working.
oh
But
that's
I'm here.
she's but well thanks for joining. Um,
Absolutely.
so yeah, it's cool. We're getting a larger group of people and starting to grow because not that it wasn't fun, but it's been Troopty, Pete, and I quite a bit. Pete Tavani, and I'm surprised he's not on here this week. Um, So we need to get some more faces, new faces on here. Okay. Well, I'll skip on right down to you, Melissa, then, and we can just work our way down the agenda because we do have one at the end where we'll someone's coming for approval for a variance.
Hold on, I asked them to come earlier because I'm gonna need to jump off.
Okay.
And I wanted to make sure I was there for that in case there was
Well, Ozzy's
follow-up.
here. Ozzy's
So,
here, so we could just go ahead and do
okay,
his
yep.
thing right now.
Yes,
Uh,
if you don't mind,
If
Melissa, it's because I'm traveling and I might have to jump off early. And I figured there's some work I may have to do depending on timelines. Thank you.
and I read through it, Ozzy, and it looks pretty straightforward to us. So
okay. Hopefully so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you could Hi, Ozzy. If you could explain to us how, and maybe Melissa can help us understand, like how did we get here where it was approved until the final inspection, and then my bigger thing is how does the BOA look at this? Like is it on you guys for not knowing something? I mean, hopefully you get the relief here, but I'm just wondering how the BOA reviews this particular thing. So if you can share a little bit about how we got here and hopefully, you get the relief and whether CPD said anything about this should not be an issue, but here's the hurdle you have to, go
Well,
through.
yeah, sure. I mean, I kind of have my practice package for our BOA hearing. Would you like to see the images that help illustrate what we're talking about?
Yeah, let's do that
and I
for
can
others.
you can share or I can share. Tripti sent me the PDF of your submittal packet, so
Well, I've got this one here. So
Yeah.
this is
Feel free to
oh
share if you want to share,
yep.
Ozzy.
great. Yeah,
Perfect.
so I'm an architect for Reggie and Ann Roba, who are the owners at 4507 Decatur. So my firm is Radix Design. We're based in Baker. We do a lot of ADUs and a lot of renovations in kind of tricky old historic houses. And uh, I actually sit on our neighborhood zoning committee, so I kind of experienced this from the Baker side and just want to express appreciation to all of you because I know how exhausting this can be after a long day. Um, but so yeah, so this is the ADU. It is already built. It's at the back of the Decatur Street. So this is the street facing block of Decatur. So it's a really wonderful row of craftsman homes, and we wanted to design something that was compatible with the craftsman style. So that was the origin of the hipped roof and the dormers. The color I didn't choose, but I think it came together well and in a compatible way. And we also looked around the neighborhood. There was a nearby home that's a historic example of a pop top that is like this is how we did pop tops in the old days, and it's really
Yeah.
nice. And so we kind of pulled from that roof line, and also just from the length of the roof being sideways to the street or the alley, and so that helped generate the form of the ADU. Um, so yeah, this issue is was a weird little technicality that as the architect, I try to know the zoning code very well and be, ahead of any issue like this, but this is something that I didn't spot. And then our plan reviewer didn't spot it either. So we got our plans approved based on this. So here's the site plan that shows the base of the ADU. So this is the garage level, not the level with the fun stuff on it. Uh, and Here is the south setback, the side interior setback. And so the way this is designed, it's so that, the ADU can be used by friends and family easily or be used by renters or short-term renters easily. So there's access from the alley and access from the front and the main house, and that kind of leads us to a door on the side. So we have a little walkway down the side setback and a step up to a landing, and then that's in and up the stairs. And we had thought this was allowed because of looking at a section in the zoning code that talks about pedestrian access flat work. That's well, I have a snip from that in a moment. So this is the south elevation of the ADU. So you can see, we had clearly drawn the steps and the doorway there. So not a surprise to anyone that the door was going to be there and a landing. Um, and so then this is the page from the zoning code about pedestrian access flat work, where it basically says you're allowed to put, a walkway in your side setback to get access to a building. And it even had, this little image here, which I seem to have gone very blurry, but there's actually a stair in the side setback in this illustration. So, this seems like it would have been okay what we were doing. But later in the zoning code, in the definitions, it talks about the pedestrian access flat work needing to be at existing grade. And I guess our building inspector, the person who caught it when the project was done, said that if we had changed grade less than 12 inches, it wouldn't have been an issue. But by the time you're up on top of the stair landing, we're at 14 inches above original grade. So we no longer count as flat work. So this is what it looks like. So this is the side passage. So the gate from the alley, the gate from the backyard, and the two steps up to the door. And so because this is above that threshold, so far as I understand, this is considered part of the building now. So our building is now in the side setback. So yeah, that is why we're seeking the zoning relief. And Trupti, you were asking about how the BOA treats this. Fortunately, there is an area in the zoning code about permits issued in error, and that is one of the grounds on which the Board of Adjustment can grant a variance. So this is like, 4 bullet point criteria that they have. Basically, we designed it. It was approved as we designed it. The people who built it right. The contractor didn't screw anything up here. They built exactly what was on the drawings. Um, uh, the work is already completed, and the last one is important, where it's given the stage where we're at, the effort and cost to comply with the zoning standard is disproportionate to the violation. So we are at a point where correcting this to follow the letter of the zoning code would be disproportionate. The ADU is complete. We can't just reduce the height of that landing because our stair steps are already at the maximum code height for stair steps, so we would create building code violations if we lowered the landing. And yeah, I mean, I could see in certain cases if we had done something that was wildly impactful on the neighbors or hurt their properties or things like that, maybe that would still require us to correct it. But we haven't met a single person who feels like this actually has an impact on them.
Great. That was going to be my next question, honestly, that the neighbor where the side setback is, you've got a letter from them as well supporting this, adjustment.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's the
Perfect.
map that Reggie put together of, we've gotten 4 letters of support for the adjoining property owners, including the one to the south on the corner, who, yeah, the
Excellent.
stair faces them. And this has taken so long with the city that one of the neighbors has moved out, and Reggie had to go to get a letter
Wow.
from the new neighbor.
Jeez.
This all
And
started
so
back in
okay,
So
and what's the date? The hearing date is what? I just want to make sure we get the letter to you in time, given the fact that, I mean, frankly, I don't even think you needed to come to us for this letter, given
Yeah.
that there is a remedy because of this stuff. However, we'll gladly give it to you. And in this situation, I don't think that we even need to like survey the community. Normally, when somebody's asking us for, zoning or adjustments where it isn't as clear cut here, we would ask the community, right? And that's why I was asking you on timing. But in this situation, I don't see that that's necessary.
Well, all I would say is, anybody else here have any comments or
I agree
criticism?
completely.
Yeah.
That's
Okay. I
ridiculous.
just
Yeah.
in due diligence, let's just make sure, because I think we're all on the same page.
Correct.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
Yeah, we have Constantine on here. Hey,
Yep.
Constantine, we don't see you here very often anymore, but thank you for joining. Any thoughts here from your end?
maybe he's not sitting at the computer.
Okay.
Um,
And I know
no, and
Michael, he's also in the neighborhood. Sorry, Constantine, are you back? Okay, no.
no, and then Michael's there.
Michael, I know you're in the neighborhood. After listening to this, do you have any questions or concerns about Sunny supporting this variance?
Um, am I the only Michael here?
Yep, you're it.
I think you are, yes.
Yeah. Um, I don't I kind of missed a lot of the beginning of that, so I'm not exactly familiar what kind of was going on. We just got done with elementary school. I had a dog. I had kids. I had just dealing with a lot of stuff at the moment, so I was a little,
I got you.
distracted.
Yep. You know what? I'll send you a note, but the gist is that permits were given on something that everybody missed that was a encroachment in the side setback. The Board of Adjustments has a remedy when something like this happens. So he's basically going to get the relief and get this adjustment. They came to us to ask us for support. And in this situation, it's pretty cut and dry that the Board of Adjustments is most likely going to give them the remedy anyway. So frankly, like I was saying, I don't think he even needed our support, but having them asked us, I'm going to actually write the letter of support. So it seems pretty cut and dry. And if you have any questions, Michael, afterwards, feel free to email me and let me know, and I can give you more detail.
Great, sounds good.
And Ozzy, where in the code did it have that part about the 12 inches if you hadn't adjusted it?
I haven't actually been able to find that.
Yeah, I've been looking all over for it today when I
That's
saw this pop
interesting.
up because the old code allowed up to 18 inches of stuff because I built a house over in Wash Park that had a patio outside, like a 20-foot by 15-foot patio that came off the house that they allowed extend into the side interior setback. Now, this was under the old code, but when this came up, I actually have an addition that I had planned on doing over here on Decatur between the 41st and 42nd block. And I had a patio going into there that I was just keeping under 18 inches because I thought that's what it was from the old code. And when it brought this up, I was like, what? And I've got the section up where it talks about this. It's actually allowed on side corners and in the rear. I mean, everywhere else this is allowed to go. It's only side interior where this is restricted, which seems odd to me. Seems like normally on side streets they have a slightly more rigorous, restrictions because it's kind of facing the public right away and stuff. And so I'm not quite sure why they did this for such a minimal impact on a side interior. Um,
Yeah,
Just
and
want to make sure Constantine chimed in here. He said this is pretty much an easy call to leave as is. So just wanted to just share that on the call. And we haven't heard from Jessica. And Jessica, feel free if you have questions to jump in or send it a comment in the note in the chat to let us know kind of what you're thinking about this. I just want to collect everybody's feedback ahead of a letter and things like that. So
Yeah, I just
thank
kind
you,
of like
Constantine.
Constantine's comment because I would agree. This is interior. This is not connecting to the public right away, so it's a little bit of a different situation.
yeah, I
Wonderful.
was
Thank you.
surprised that this would have been totally fine had you been on the outside corner. Um, so yeah, no.
All right. So how quickly do you need the letter? I'm away until next week, but I know we just got the notification within the last day or two. So when is the hearing date? And so I can get this to all the parties.
yeah, I've got the form here. It says public comments are due January 2nd at noon.
Okay. Okay.
And the hearing date is January 7th.
Okay. Yep. I know Lindsay, that's the person who, sent the notification. I'll send her a note saying a support letter is forthcoming from us.
Well, that's great. I appreciate that so much, and I know Reggie and Ann will be very glad to hear that too. I think they're on a plane tonight, so they couldn't join us, but I very much appreciate the sympathetic ear, and um,
Absolutely. I wish
yeah.
everything was this cut and dry.
Well, yeah, you never want to have to be asking, but I'm glad you all are receptive. That's
Yep. Thank you. Thanks for coming in
Thank you very much.
and coming to us. I appreciate it.
all righty. Thanks so much. I guess
Okay.
I'll
Absolutely.
take off now and let you finish
Okay.
your meeting. Yeah.
And thanks for doing the work in Baker too.
All right. Take care all.
Take care. Bye.
All righty. Well, that was a pretty cut and dry one. I saw that one. I'm surprised they didn't
I
that
did
could.
too, and I wanted to see that remedy. You know, that he had the criteria.
Yeah,
I'm actually going to quote that criteria in my letter, so I think that's easy. Now, I know we have another guest who wanted to get on, so I think if you guys don't mind, because right after Michael, I'm probably going to jump off and go have dinner. So we have Michael Murphy on here. He's a Sunnyside resident. He reached out to us asking about, how do we work towards, improvements in Chaffee Park? And a few years ago, I believe Michael worked with the Councilwoman Sandoval to do some improvements on the basketball court. It might have been the hoops themselves. Michael, you could share more, but we've got Michael Murphy. Welcome, and tell us kind of what you have in mind.
Sorry about that. I haven't used the Zoom app on my phone in a long time.
I got you.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you guys being so responsive on when I sent you the Instagram message. And yeah, it was a couple years ago. We moved into the Sunnyside neighborhood about 8 years ago from the Northern Virginia area. Got 3 kids under 4.5 right now, and a few years back, I noticed that one of the basketball hoops was broken, and not a lot was getting done. I was like, you know what? I just want to donate something and help out the neighborhood. And I've just been kind of keeping my eye on kind of the playground itself as my kids are getting older, 4.5, 1.5, and 4 months. And one of the first changes that I saw that needed to be made was I couldn't even get into the playground area. So they put that ramp in there for me, and just as time has gone on, I've kind of noticed just how kind of old and the need for updates in the playground, especially as you see a lot of renovations and new playgrounds going up around the city, like the one over at Sloan's Lake, and a lot of playgrounds these days are getting away from that mulch, that big mulch like surface or whatever, which I'm not gonna lie is not easy to push through. I'm 18 years in a wheelchair, fell off a roof in college, and getting a little bit older, getting harder and harder to push around. And I was like, you know what? Just something needs to be done. I don't know what can be done. How can I sort of tap into the neighborhood? Because as I've talked to a lot of parents in the area, everyone's like, yeah, we just need a newer playground. We need some updated equipment, whatever. I mean, I have a lot of ideas how to make something like ADA accessible or just more inclusive. But I feel like there's just so much that could be done. I just don't know a lot of the ins and outs of the behind the scenes. How long it takes, what are all the hoops that you need to jump through, all the signatures, who needs to sign off on what. But I guess I'm also just kind of looking for maybe some answers, information from you guys on, what can I do? What can my neighbors do? What can my friends do who also have kids and who also have expressed, a need for some renovations in that area, especially as our neighborhood is really growing, which is awesome. So,
well, thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
I will say that Chaffee is slated for an update. However, when that happens, part of it has to do with capital improvement funding, Okay, so because I had this conversation, like La Raza just got some work done, and I heard Chaffee was, slated for improvements because the stuff is getting old, right? But in
Yeah.
terms of what that will look like, how long it will take, whether it'll be an improvement or just redo of what's already there. The other thing we've heard many, many times from the neighborhood is the fact that the sidewalk doesn't go all the way around. That's also an issue. So I think the time is right for you to have reached out to us. I think what we need to do as an organization is kind of build the momentum and movement to organize and then, push the city towards, like when, why, how much, what can be done? How about this? Why not this? So I think we need to organize. And so to your point of what can we do, let's kind of start there. Now, I do think Councilwoman Sandoval may have a role possibly in the budgeting side of things, and Melissa, jump in if I'm incorrect there. And then the Parks and Rec will have a part. The sidewalk may be Dottie, so a different department. But the Parks and Rec Advisory Board that meets monthly and each district has a representative, I think that might be the first place for us to start with asking these questions and starting to hold them accountable. So those are some of the people. One more group that we can tap into, and they're not here, they're normally don't join, but I think in future meetings, we have a meeting about parks specifically, is Denver Park Trust. So Denver Park Trust a couple of years ago, maybe actually more pandemic, right, was they were an offshoot. Frank Rowe used to be he was the executive director, used to be on Parks and Rec committee. And so now it's a nonprofit. We've worked with them to help raise some money. We got a $5,000 grant. We put in new benches, a bike rack. So we've done a little bit. There's a couple $1,000s still sitting there. They can be a fiduciary for us in a sense where they hold the money and they only give it to Parks and Rec when Parks and Rec delivers. So, they can be a partner. So I think those are all the people. And I've already had a conversation with someone at Parks and Rec and Frank Rowe about Chaffee Park and the fact that it's slated for improvements. It's on the list. But in terms of timing, it has to do with money. So that's where I think, Councilwoman Sandoval can become part of it. So those are the things that I know today to be true. But to your point, we need to organize. And Michael, if you want to champion it, we could use that champion, right? You could have our platform for communication, support, things like that. But we need a champion. We need people to want to work towards this stuff. And, we have another individual who's not on here, who just joined as a standing committee member, who's a landscape design person who works for a firm. And he too reached out originally saying, I want to join Parks and Rec. And I was like, we don't really have a committee, but here's where land use and, this is where you can get involved. And this is the kind of work we can do. So he too is interested on that side, but he also has the skill set and capacity to actually design this entire park. And additionally, he has resources at his own firm to tap into other, resources we may not have. And then on top of that, we could also be thinking about fundraising or finding grants and things like that. And that's where Parks and the Denver Park Trust is also can be part of it. So those are all the kind of parts, but us organizing and building momentum and taking the community along is kind of the starting place.
Yeah, Michael, could you drop your contact info or your email in the chat, and I'll send you an email with my contact info, because like Drupti said, like James and I have already had conversations about the park and have some other ideas about what we'd like to see and helping guide the improvements, and the playground and the basketball court are all part of what we were talking about. So I'd love to include you in there and get your insight and input and energy and that sort.
Absolutely. Yep. I just sent my email. Just a couple thoughts after kind of listening to all that. One just sort of open-ended question just throwing it out there. Overall, would it be more efficient or more, you know, better financially to tear it down and build a new, or update little things here and there? I'm just thinking like the surface itself, or changing that rope bridge to an actual bridge, which I know a lot of parents are like, I wish it was just an actual bridge and not a rope for the smaller kids. Or is it better to just start from scratch? Another thing is
Okay, so
fundraising.
hold on.
I wonder how easy.
Okay, I'm writing that down.
What's that?
Okay, I kind of have a bit of an answer to that first one, and I just wanted to make sure. So those are decisions at the Parks and Rec level. For instance, what we're slated for is updating the current stuff. So basically, they're not redesigning. Like the $1 million or $2 million they have in mind is basically replacing the current stuff that is old, not necessarily adding a new amenity. Like for instance, if we're like, we want shade stations, well, what we're slated for is not additional items. We're slated to replace the existing playground because it's 10 plus years old or whatever the age is that requires this trigger of this becoming on the list. So that's a Park and Rec conversation, but right now it is slated for replacement of existing, not adding anything new.
Gotcha. Thank you for that, for the clarification. And then the fundraising, like, I wonder how easy it would be, or reaching out to local businesses. Like, I'm sure in terms of sponsors, like I'm sure like a Monkey Barrel or Radiator, I'm sure they would love to support in some way. I also just know
they have.
Oh, they have. Okay. Oh, nice.
They That's have awesome. In the past. Modus and Monkey Barrel both have done stuff. In fact, that infant swing that was added was because of Monkey Barrel. However, the kind of dollars that we're talking about are probably in the millions, and that is outside of most small businesses. They're talking hundreds, okay, or thousands, but not tens of thousands. So this is where we want to either go find grant money, and this is where again where Denver Park Trust can help us. A lot of times what they will do is they go help find money. A lot of times they bridge the gap and the shortage between what the city can fund, but all of this, I mean, this, I'm going to not lie and say this is a 5-year project, okay, for us to get from here to something actually happening. At least 5 years, maybe a little less, but things just take really long to get there, right? We're probably 2 years before we know whether that 1 million of capital funds is going to be placed there. But when we start talking about we want something more and different, and here's another million, and we start fundraising the million, here's the thing. The city would need to know they already have that additional $1 million before they plan, right? Because they can only plan on money that they already have. So if we say, hey, just plan this $2 million park, we'll go find you the $1 million. It doesn't work that way. They would need the money before the planning. So just keep some of those moving parts in line. We're talking about, so, what can we do? Like, maybe it's small incremental, things like the ADA accessible playground even. We've talked about this, and this is actually doable. That's only a few $1,000s, and we may be able to do that even relatively quickly with Denver Park Trust. We've talked about that, but something that larger, like let's replace this, let's add one of those natural type of playgrounds. All of those will be the millions and years. I think somebody else was trying to jump in and say something. So
I was just gonna chime in and say, don't shy away from all the developers that are looking to do work in the neighborhood. If they're looking to up the price of the sale of new housing and they want to kind of push the amenities in the neighborhood, they might be willing to chip in a little bit to help get us closer to what we need to make that more. So if you're seeing those folks come into the neighborhood, don't shy away from asking. They can say no, but they can also say yes, because that money comes a lot easier to them than it does the city.
Absolutely. And who's that talking? Is that Jessica?
Yep.
Hi, Jessica. Thank you. Sorry, don't recognize your voice yet. No,
That's okay.
absolutely.
We'll
I'm
get
not
there.
saying we wouldn't be fundraising from all of those parties, but I'm just saying that, depending on what we're trying to do, it could be a lot, or it could be just tens of thousands. Tens of thousands is like a reasonable thing that I think we could fundraise, successfully. If we're talking about 200,000, 500,000, we would need some more powerhouses, and we'd have to go find money, even outside of our own city for stuff like that. But I agree. So kind of maybe, as we organize, the first set of things to maybe understand is kind of the type of thing, like it's okay to say dream big, but then we'll have to kind of, see what's actually doable. And I think it might be a separate conversation than today, but in terms of organizing the community around this, I think it's a great idea. And like I said, Michael, if you want to lead it, you have Sunny's support.
That sounds great. I will do whatever I can to
Okay.
enact change and whatever you guys need from me. And shoot me an email or whatever, and just happy to do whatever.
Yep.
Perfect. Well, thank
So I
you, Mike.
think,
I just dropped you an email too, and I CC James on it as well, so we can start keeping the conversation going.
It's awesome. I
Yeah,
appreciate
and
that.
so Rod and I are talking about the fact that in 2025, we want to maybe build momentum around a couple of things. I think this park is one of them. Another one is potentially, design over in the TOD area, the area that is, yet to be developed, because there's other people and other parties interested in that. So those are the two things that, as an organization, we may take up. Beyond the things that we do, like people who need support from us and zoning, but two, like really proactive things that we can do working towards a better, community. We are, looking at 2025 for that. So I think we start having discussions next month to
Well,
begin
yeah.
what that looks like.
Well, and the park in particular is important because we've already invested a lot of time and there's a lot of interest in improving the 44th corridor. And of course, the park is the terminus for that, so it falls
Agree.
in, it blends into that conversation, so it can't be something that's just excluded. So
Agree. Yeah, thank you very much, Michael. I mean, and thank you for, volunteering to help us and to bring this to our attention and to also move it forward and build some momentum.
Michael, just out of curiosity, where are you at in the neighborhood? I missed that first part when you did your introduction.
Yeah, we're at 44th and Quivus. We're in just kind of right behind Huckleberry Roasters.
Yep, perfect. Okay, I'm at 42nd and Clay, so I'm a little further west than you, but so cool. Well,
Nice.
I'll look for you. I walk by there quite a bit. So
Yeah, and definitely let's get coffee.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I was gonna say I'm the house that either has all the Halloween decorations or the really loud German Shepherd barking from behind the fence.
Oh, okay.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thanks, everyone, for joining. Hey, Rod, I'm going to drop off,
Okay.
continue recording, and then send it to me. And I have a backlog of postings. Thank you all.
Okay.
Bye,
Take care.
Tracy.
Melissa, thank you so much
Bye.
for waiting.
Oh, no problem.
I
I do want to clarify a few things on that last conversation.
Absolutely.
So a lot of these
Listen to this.
projects are bond projects. The councilwoman has absolutely no ability to influence the order of the bond projects. You have 10 years to spend bond money, and there is a bond executive committee that makes the decision on what projects get to go first, second, third, et cetera. And it often comes down to readiness or need. And so those are planned out well in advance. So we've had two bonds, and we could potentially in the next year or two have another bond, which any significant improvements to Chaffee Park would likely have to be a bond issue. But that would be something that you could consider advocating for if and when we go for another bond here. But I dropped links to the bond. You can see there's a great website that you can see those bond projects by council district. So of course we're Council District 1. You can sort it by Parks and Rec or anything else to be able to see what projects were part of that bond and where they are in the in the stage of the project, whether it's just been funded or it's in design stage or it's complete, whatever it may be. So you can view all of those through that first link. And then there's 2 links to the Denver Park Trust, one on the Sunnyside Park enhancements that were completed, and one on the near Northwest area plans, Northwest Park Mobility Trail that they hope to have money for by 2030. So
by 2030, did you say?
2030.
Did you say 2030? Just making sure I heard that right.
You absolutely did.
And so capital improvements is capital improvements not part of a fix to the park? Like, you know, at least what I had heard was capital improvements on what they had indicated needed to be done on, but again, people may have just been using the wrong term.
I'm sorry, could you be a little more, like, what is your question? I'm sorry.
Okay, so when what was Anna Claudia and Frank Rowe, when I had a conversation with them and they were saying, yes, Chaffee is on the list, it's time for a redoing the existing because it's old. She had mentioned capital improvement. Now, capital improvement funds are different than bond funds?
They are, and they have capital improvement. So, you know, generally the city looks at capital improvements in batches of short and longer term. So it could be that it's on the, I don't know if Parks and Rec is on the 6-year plan, like Dottie is, but it could be on a 6-year plan.
So that's a short term.
Yeah, that's our short term.
Okay. So there, I guess the question, my real question was, if it was a capital improvement side, then Councilwoman Sandoval has a say, correct, on capital improvements, how money is spent? Is that part of the budget?
No.
Okay.
She approves the budget, but that is a granular level that council does not have authority over. That's the mayor's thing, because that comes down to running of the agencies. But as far as how much we give to Parks and Rec, and generally how much for capital improvements or whatever, that council does oversee and approve. So if the mayor proposes the budget, council reviews it, proposes changes or doesn't, and then ultimately approves the budget.
Okay. So, I mean, I do think that there's some role, and I guess if we, ask Councilwoman Sandoval if and when it's appropriate to be saying, here's all your constituents who said they wanted something. So when that time comes, I just want to make sure. All right. Thank you so much for the clarification. Now I will drop off. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Good night, Trupti.
So what you're telling me, Melissa, is I'm going to be much older and much grayer before I get my pavilion in the park.
I'm thinking we will all be older and grayer.
Yeah, before I can.
But yes,
that's harsh.
It is a very harsh reality. Oh, go ahead.
I just have a quick question. What if the neighborhood wanted to, I don't know, if we were able to get the funds to do something, are you able to do that?
So you can go through the Parks Trust. Trupti kind of briefly touched on that, having them be the steward of the money, so people would be able to donate to the Park Trust, and then it would, spend that on a park improvement, agreed upon.
Because I have a really cool fundraiser that we could do if anybody's interested at some point.
I was gonna say, we can't just build something ourselves.
No, but I have the funding mechanism for my pavilion, and that would cover a lot of other improvements in the park too. So if anybody's interested, we can have a side meeting about that.
I'm interested.
And so all right, I'll bring it up at the next one, or we can have a special thing, and I'll have my presentation because I've modeled it up in Revit and everything already. So
that's amazing. Okay, hold on here. I'll share my screen.
Well, so everybody. You can obviously see her title, but anybody that doesn't know Melissa, she's here every month and gives an update for District 1 and for Amanda Sandoval's office.
Yes. This off of here. Sorry. All right. So this is just a land use slide deck that I send out monthly. If you have not signed up to receive that, I'll put a link to that in the chat. These are just updates that are related to land use issues in Northwest Denver. So the first up, we will have the near Northwest area plan rezoning. So it was at planning board as an informational item, just to kind of get planning board's initial reaction to the proposal, which is two different types of rezoning. One is bringing old code zoning, so former chapter 59 properties into the current zoning code. And the other is applying the active centers and corridors, DO8 overlay, to streetcar nodes and corridors throughout the near Northwest area plan, which is the Jefferson Park, Highland, Sunnyside, and Chaffee Park neighborhoods. So we had that on December 4th, the information item. It was well received by planning board. No real concerns on their part that we're worried about. And so we will be before planning board for a public hearing on January 15th. And there's some information on how to participate in that public hearing if you are so interested. We have the Advancing Equity and Rezoning Project, another issue that's coming before council. And this is basically expanding access to notifications about rezonings and changes to people that are not just property owners. Previously, we really were only sending out notifications to the property owner, and it was often catching the even sometimes longtime residents that were renters off guard. So this will provide notifications to renters as well, and kind of changing some language to make it more equitable in our zoning code. So just some minor tweaks, but really trying to improve our access and our equity in the zoning process. It was at planning board on December 4th, and it will move forward to council, I believe in January. So if you have any questions on that, please reach out to me. There's information on this slide on the project webpage and the rest. We have the 2024 text amendment bundle, which has gotten a lot of attention, primarily because of the change to the primary residency requirement attached to the carriage lots. There are only a little more than 30 carriage lots left in the city, so this is not a huge change for our city, but what it will do is it will remove the requirement that you must be have your primary residence on the houses surrounding the carriage lot, so on the same block, to be able to develop that carriage lot. Currently, you can build an ADU as a use by right. You don't have to ask a living soul besides Denver. And you can build a structure on that carriage lot if you own it and you have your primary residence on the surrounding block. This change removes that primary residence requirement, but it limits what can be done with that carriage lot. So you will only be able to build a home that is the size of an ADU. It'll be a primary residence. It'll be a single family home, but it can be no taller or greater size and footprint than what is allowed for an ADU today. And it cannot have an ADU of its own, so no attached or detached ADUs. So that'll be at council for a public hearing on Monday. It should be an interesting public comment period. So here's how to sign up to speak if you'd like to do so. New, we have the proposed regulations for new gas stations. So some council members have brought this forward. They want to prohibit new gas stations within a quarter mile of existing gas stations. Quarter mile of, it says light rail, but it's just general transit, light rail or heavy rail transit stations, and 300 feet of low density residential zone districts like single unit and 2 unit zoning. So this would go in effect, it took effect in theory for all projects submitted after May 13th, 2024. So this is just starting. If you have comments that you want to send in on this, they're taking all public comments by December 16th to make any kind of real substantive changes to the proposal, and then it'll head to planning board on the 18th. We have, just a reminder that we do have ADUs allowed citywide. For Sunnyside, we just rezoned you guys to allow ADUs in the remaining portions of Sunnyside, so really this doesn't impact you at all. We have some more information again on that ball arena redevelopment, just on the community benefits agreement and what will happen with the ball arena parking lots and property. And then for Sunnyside, just reminders, we have the BRT There will be a joint meeting of Highland and Sunnyside residents for a briefing on DRT plans for Federal Boulevard. That'll be on December 17th at Locavore. So I encourage you to go if you are at all interested. They have previously and select charrettes, discussed the stations, where they'll be and the designs. And this is just kind of providing that information and getting some feedback. And that is all I have.
Hey, Melissa, thank you. I had a quick question back about the carriage lots.
Yes.
This whole process is basically sort of cleaning up some of the issues around from the zoning perspective. And I briefly mentioned this, I think, one time before to you, and I was just wondering, what are the conversations looking like for utilities and fire access and stuff, particularly like water and gas, or sewer lines usually run down the alley, so I can see how that one could be rectified. But water, gas, and then, normally with say a flag lot, you're still required to have 20 feet of direct contact with public right of way, where these are only accessed by alleys, which are at best in a lot of cases like 12 feet. So have there been discussions around fire, or this is just the thing to get it off of zonings?
This is something to get it off of zoning plate. They don't want to babysit who owns what anymore.
Yeah.
And there's actually several changes in this bundle that kind of remove the ownership language.
Right.
So this is not the only one, but really what this does is says it's allowed. Now, whether you can or cannot, whether fire will let you, whether you can access
right. So this is just like the zoning side, and then building department's going to have a whole rat's nest of stuff they got to go through.
That's exactly it. And so, these will go through the standard building, permitting and everything like that. And their site development reviews will include transportation.
But nothing's been developed in parallel. Nothing's been developed in parallel with the building department to follow along with as they're working with this in zoning.
No, we do have someone that's rearing to go in Sloan's Lake. There is someone that owns one of the parcels there and is eager to develop it. He is an architect, so he will be our kind of first out of the gate. Can you do this?
Right, because I had a property split that was over in Southeast Denver where it ended up being put into sort of a flag lot situation, which is kind of similar to like what a carriage lot position is on the thing. And fire was just absolutely, you got to have 20-foot right of way to get to that. And and then there's some sprinkler issues there too. If you're more than 150 feet off the right of way, it's got to be fully sprinkled and all of that kind of stuff. So anyway, I'll follow along.
They will have to figure all that out.
Yeah.
But since you mentioned flag lots, I'm not sure if you saw, but Board of Adjustment came through this afternoon for Sunnyside for a flag lot that I didn't even know existed at 39th and Clay.
That's right over. I know which one that is. Yeah, I know that weird lot over there, that block.
So they're looking to basically make some non-conforming zone lot amendments because they want to be able to develop that back flag lot property. And so they'll have to give right of way to make it. It's currently 12 feet and they need to make it 16 to meet fire code. So if you read all that, it's really interesting. We'll see.
Wait,
wow.
How do you find that?
I can send it to you, Lexi. I just received it in my email.
Thanks. I was just curious, two quick things. On the gas station stuff that we talked about on Tuesday, Melissa, is there a comment being made about the difference between just a light rail versus like a light rail stop versus an actual, like where people go and park versus the gas station situation? I don't think it applies here, but remember, I don't know who brought it up yesterday, maybe Steve, or not yesterday, but Tuesday. Just a general, is that like being or does that have to be placed as a public comment?
You mean as far as it saying light rail? Is that what you mean?
Well, remember we talked about, is it like a regular light rail stop, or is it one where it's like you go and park and it's like, wouldn't it make sense maybe to have a gas station close to that?
So that's something that you can submit a comment on.
Okay. Got it. I was
that's a
just
little
curious.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I know you were
Hold
looking
on.
into that.
He had specifically asked if it was only light rail. Steve had asked, and I confirmed that it's not only light rail. So heavy rail will still qualify.
Oh, okay. Got it. I think maybe I misunderstood that. Okay. And then just a side note, I'm going to the meeting next week for at Levers
BRT.
for the BRT. So I don't know if anybody else is going, but I'm happy to
I'll plan
report
on
back.
being there. I'll plan on being there as well. I couldn't make that last one they had down at 12.
What time is that again? 6 to 7?
6 to 7, I think. Yeah. 6 to 7.
Lexi, which email address do you use? I have way too many for you.
Oh, I know. Sorry. It's L MacArthur, MacArthur at livesotheby's.com
Okay.
LID. Thanks.
I'll plan on being there too. I have connections to the CDOT BRT manager, so I'll just kind of be there to help speak on our behalf. So
cool. Well, and the BRT doesn't affect Sunnyside as much as it does some of the other neighborhoods because the improvements along Sunnyside are not there's not gonna be a widening of Federal at this juncture. So
it doesn't impact our properties, but from a accessibility and just like for folks that want it, it's great to have it, right? It's an asset for us.
No, absolutely. I'm all about that. Yeah, the service and the functionality of it's going to change, but it's not like the other neighborhoods where they're going to be in years worth of construction as they dig.
Thankfully.
Yeah. So well, thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
And just so everybody knows, like that's a permanent fixture in the agenda. So on the agenda sheet, there's a link where Melissa comes and talks on her part of the agenda each week. And if you click on that, it's got all of her update to that website where you can get all of them. Just scroll down to the month and you can get her updates on there. As far as updates, I had a couple. Melissa already mentioned one, but there was one other one that just came in like yesterday that was from the I-70 westbound, sound wall program that's going on, and it looks like Lowell and Federal Boulevard ramps are going to be closed for the next week again. So anybody zipping around the neighborhood should know that you won't be able to get off the ramps at Federal and Lowell. So just public as a PSA from us. Because it was like I just come back from Costco last week and I was like, what the heck is going on? And the whole interstate was like a nightmare. So yeah, it was crazy traffic. It was like it caught everybody off guard. So anyway, well, I'm not going to keep everybody longer unless anybody's got any other things they'd like to bring up. We've gone through everything on the agenda. And we even got our two speakers out of the way early. So Melissa, thanks for hanging on until they got done. Oh, Lexi, you've got your hand up.
Well, the update on, did you go over the update on 44th? I was just curious.
Oh, did she drop? Oh, well, yeah, I can give you the update. Well, I don't have any official update. From what we've heard is they are waiting for the new revised drawings to be permitted. So they're going through the permitting process. As far as what's happened over there, they dumped in probably about one dump truck load, maybe two. It's kind of hard to tell. They spread it out a little bit of gravel, which lowered the water level in the bottom a little bit. It's still about a foot deep in areas, I think. And that's where they left it. Like they didn't do anything more than that as far as like trying to rectify the big hole. And quite frankly, now it's frozen. So I'm not sure if they start filling it in now with dirt. Quite frankly, I'm a little concerned about it, but I don't know if there's anything we can do until something actually physically happens. Like I was walking the other day and literally dirt was falling down because it was kind of late morning and the temperature was warming up and every night everything freezes over there, and then it starts to thaw out during the day, and it just starts cracking apart. And there was literally dirt clods falling off the wall down into the water from between the caissons. So it's going to continue to deteriorate unless they do something by filling it in or resume construction. But I don't know if they even know when they're going to get that out of the building department.
Got it. Thanks. Yeah, I feel so bad for that guy trying to
Yeah,
do the right thing,
it's a
and that
tough
was awful.
situation. I wish they had
Yeah.
just filled it back in, to be honest with you, and then left it kind of just a pile of dirt rather than a hole. But I guess there's no really to force them to do that. Although I'm also concerned for those people to the south. It's their yard and their front porch that I think are going to be most affected by well, Jessica can probably comment on this as a civil engineer. That soil will begin to decompress a little bit because the pressure's been relieved on that one side. And would not be surprised if that house sees some settling here over the next few years.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I was gonna say this is definitely not the time of year to be excavating and pouring concrete just because the freeze and thaw and the just everything can really lead to issues later on. So unless you can mobilize quickly to get everything in place, which is not happening, we try to avoid this time of year. So
Right. Well, which is one of the reasons why I thought they should have filled it in while it was still warm, because then it would be down below the frost line. And then if
yeah,
they excavated again, they'd be back into sort of thawed soil. But now, as it is, all that groundwater is completely frozen in there. Um,
they
which
did
is,
this across the street from us because I'm at 42nd and Vallejo, and same thing. They demoed a house in the middle of January and they filled it in until it warmed up until they could come back and excavate it, and that's where we're at today. So
yeah, because the other thing is, I don't know if they've thought about this, but when it does start to thaw out in the spring and they, in theory, do get it, you cannot build on that mud that's going to be there. It's just going to be a mess. So they're going to have to dig all of that out of there and over excavate at this point. But anyway, well, yeah, so no real official update. Sorry. Let's see. Since you brought that up, Lexi, I wanted to make sure that I don't really have any updates on the Remington school either, other than they're not going to be using it for the temporary housing of immigrants. So,
I have one last real quick question. I should figure out how to find this information, but the two little hair salons on 46, I think one of them may have been converted to short-term rental. I don't know if that is
is
allowed.
that
I'm not sure.
right there by Bryant?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then the one that's closest to Bryant next to the parking lot where they were going to do Funky Flame was going to do something. And then now they're doing a ton of stuff. I walk by it all the time. There's people there and in and out. So I just didn't know if anybody had any. I knew that
No.
Funky Flame was tied to, like, they were working with that investor that owned it to do something down the road. But then obviously that, their situation changed. So, I don't know. I was just curious if there's any way to find out if they've pulled. I don't know. I could probably look if they've pulled
Yeah, I
permits
think
for
I
that.
think you can look stuff up by address, I think, on the
Yeah,
if there's an active permit out there.
but nothing's
Um,
come through the committee
no,
for
nothing's
any.
come through
Okay,
here.
okay,
Nothing's come through here. So,
cool.
um,
Thanks.
does anybody know the address of that? Like maybe find that address. I could help you. No, I
I
could
could find it.
find it too.
I
I
have
walk
it
by
up.
there. I walk by there too quite a bit. So,
I
um,
have my property records. I can find it pretty
so
quickly.
cool. Um, so yeah, we should find out. I always thought those were kind of funky little.
Well, I was excited about it, and I know
Yeah.
some neighbors were. I don't know if the direct neighbor was, but yeah, it's 2557 West 46th Avenue.
If I
Anyway, I don't need to keep everybody here. I
No,
just
no,
was
I'll
curious.
go ahead and I'll email you or something if dig something up.
Yeah, I was just curious if anything came through the
No, nothing came through here.
okay, cool.
The
Thanks.
last thing I show is a building permit on 10-5
Oh,
lawn use.
Well, that's
Review
fairly
in
recent.
progress.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, you can now? Okay, great. Yeah, this is Constantine. Sorry, my mic was having some issues. I'm guessing here, but it might be a different bakery coming there. I posted a little URL in the chat.
Oh.
That's my guess, but it seems to coincide with
Oh, I've heard about this.
the
Oh,
timing.
okay. Okay. Cool.
Sure.
Thanks.
You bet.
Very cool. Well, thanks for posting that.
Yeah, glad to contribute.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thanks for the update on 44th and Zuna. I'm kind of I'm a little bit feel bad for the guy, and
Yeah.
also feel like we don't need to make the situation worse by having sidewalks collapse and impact the guy to the south, the homeowner that's moved in pretty recently to a new build. So yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
that's
Well,
hard.
and like Jessica was alluding to, and I was saying earlier, I think really the spring, it may kind of hang on through the winter, but as soon as things start moving around in the spring, like for example, if we get like a lot of rain, they've got so much dirt piled there up there, that silt fence is never going to hold that dirt back.
Yeah, they put in the gravel and they kind of, I mean, I was out of town when it happened, but they spread it only partially. Like they could have
Right.
covered the whole water up with the
Yeah, there
gravel.
was still like about half the pile just up against the wall. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
so I'm not quite sure what happened there. Like why they just didn't push the rest around. It was weird.
right.
So, well, I'll see if Trukey is in contact with them quite a bit. I'll get talk with her next week and see if she can reach out and maybe get a little bit of update that we can relay.
Right on.
So,
Thank you.
all right. Well, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, we will. This has been a good one, and I'll post the recording up there if anybody needs to watch it again. But we will see you guys next month then.
No,
Happy
Happy New
holidays.
Year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Happy holidays.
Happy
Good
holidays.
meeting.
Happy New Year.
See y'all.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Thank you.